pleased to be able to introduce you to Gratitude, Walking a Tightrope. This Flute of the Month was one that, I call it the Flute of the Month. Start thinking I was going to get them out every month, but this flute itself, just the designing the flute, took me 2 months, or maybe 6 weeks, something like that, to figure out the design. And I guess it has been 2 months that I've been working on this. Anyways, it's one that we put a lot of thought and a lot of intent into the flute itself, into the work that we've done in the flute and the inlays and everything about it. The wood itself is Brazilian rosewood. You probably have heard me talk about it, and that's where the story all begins, really, with Gratitude, Walking a Tightrope. I found this wood from a guy who buys reclaimed lumber out of Brazil and gets it shipped in. It's reclaimed lumber, and it could be anything in there, from pine to Pernambuco to Brazilian rosewood. There's other rosewoods that could be in there, and all sorts of other trees, because people build with what they have available. And so this building that had been taken down was built probably 150, 200 years ago, and was taken down. And talking to him, he says they used a lot of Brazilian rosewood in churches and in worship homes. And so he says that chances are that the wood has been was used for building some sort of an edifice for worshiping. And then when it was taken down, the wood became available for sale. And that's the only way that we actually have the wood. It's been illegal to export from Brazil since '67 and illegal to import to the United States since '92. But coming in as reclaimed lumber, it was legal to bring into the country, and makes it available for us to be able to make instruments from it and to sell these instruments to you, which is so exciting. Buying the wood I was way out on tightrope with buying the wood. My wife says, "Are you sure you want to spend that much money, Brent, on a wood, and we don't really have a purpose for it yet?" And I said, Julia, I just think it would be amazing to be able to have enough Brazilian rosewood to be able to make a series of flutes from them, walking the tightrope. It would be awesome to be able to make that series, and then to be able to have enough wood left over that we can do other projects with it, other flutes and whatnot. And she says, "All right, well, if you think it's the right thing to do, I'll do it." She says, "What are you going to do for the flute?" And I said, "I don't know yet. I have no idea." It was later, a couple of weeks later, that I was working out in the shop and was working on my laser. I've got a laser that does our engravings and cuts the leather straps and a few other things that we use it for. And the laser was just not lined up right. The beam was split in two, and I tried everything I knew to do, and I could not get this thing fixed. I'd move it one direction, and it just wouldn't work. And I let that get under my skin a little bit. And so I'd gotten a little bit frustrated, we'll say, with the laser, and decided I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So I put on the soundtrack from Greatest Showman, the movie Greatest Showman. Loved that movie. I love well, there's many things I love about it, but it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. Anyways, one of the songs in the movie is called Tightrope. And when the soundtrack got to that song, I was really into the music, and I was singing at the top of my lungs, and and belting it all out, totally out of key, and I just got this overwhelming sense of gratitude for my wife as I was thinking about my wife and the things that she's done for and with me in this path of walking the Native American flute path. It wasn't what she signed up for when she married me. I was going to school to be an engineer, and she had a different idea of what that life was going to look like. But she's such an incredible person, for me particularly, because of her willingness to embrace what I embrace, and to march forward into this unknown direction of the Native American flute. She was pregnant with our last child, actually, when I originally quit my job, And I think about that, and it's like, wow, she did it with confidence and trust. Just really amazing to me. And so the cool thing is that the song ended, and I've got tears in my eyes, and I can't really see what I'm doing because of the tears, and but then I clear them up, and I test the laser, boom, and it's working perfect. And I was kind of surprised, but at the same time, I was thinking that well, I just thought, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that when I was working on the laser, I still had the same intellect that I have now, or had then, and but by changing the focus of what I was doing and changing the intent by seeing the need for gratitude, or seeing this deep gratitude that I have for my wife, when that changed me and allowed me to perhaps be in a better state of mind, perhaps allowed the Spirit to work within me and to help me. But whatever it did, it worked. And that outlook, the outlook that I had when changed, became, instead of a negative thing, it became something very positive. So the name of the flute came to me when that happened, when I recognized what had happened, and it just popped into my head: gratitude, walking a tightrope. And I wasn't even working on it right now. It just was constantly in my mind. I constantly have been thinking about, what am I going to do for this flute? How am I going to really take it, this wood and make something really beautiful from it that can bless people, regardless of whether they buy a flute or not. But just the concept of it can be of value to them. And so I still didn't know what we were going to do for the design of the instrument. I had the name, that was a big step, but I didn't know about the design. I had a client over, actually the husband of a client, and he had brought one of her flutes to me to do some work on. It was Dan Warrenbrock, and Dan and Will are wonderful people, and we love them a great deal. And but while Dan was there in the shop with me, I was telling him about the flute, and he knew about the flute already, the wood, and I was talking to him about the name. And as I was telling him about the name, I said, Dan, if I can just communicate to people just one thing, I want to communicate to them that whether it's their loved ones, or whether they think of Creator or God or Goddess or the universe or the greater human consciousness, I just would like to be able to communicate to people that they are loved, that there is an entity that loves and cares for them, and is watching out. And doesn't mean that life is easy or that we won't have hardships. Those are necessary for our growth. But the fact that we are loved is something that I find of great value. And so while I was telling Dan this, I was holding my hands like this, in this attitude of catching. And so as soon as I looked down at my hands, I was like, of course, that's the totem. It's a pair of hands ready to catch someone if they should fall. And so that's where the idea of hands came from. I made them blue instead of another color because I wanted to eliminate any kind of potential racial interpretation as to the color of God's hands, because I think there's no place for that in this reality of a loving universe. So that conversation with Dan is where the idea of hands, in the attitude of supporting or prepared to catch, that's where the hands came from. The totem base is red coral, and then it has inlays. These little dots on the red coral represent like Vegas in a pueblo, It's a beam that is used in the building of the structure. And then in the middle of the temple or pyramid, there's a symbol that's a circle within a circle. And then the circle within the circle is a Navajo symbol for infinity or eternal. So we have someone who loves us eternally, um, that has deep care and concern for our well-being and our growth and happiness. So that's the idea behind the totem. The flute itself has like these. It looks like a little vortex, but there's actually two lines coming in, and that vortex represents two hands clasping together. And the idea of the two hands clasping together came from two different places. One was my shop manager. He said, you know, with my wife and I, when I think of us and the gratitude I have for her and her help as I walk my life and my help as I walk with her and hers, the idea of the hands grasped together comes to mind because she's actively engaged in helping me and I'm actively engaged in helping her. And I thought, oh, that's beautiful. We definitely want to have that idea within the flute. So the other part of this symbol came from to my mind as I contemplated something one of my brother-in-laws shared with me. I was down helping with my Navajo brother's funeral and have been there for quite a while. And I had asked his brother-in-law, I said, why is it that that down here on the reservation that we shake hands so gently? Why the difference? The Navajo are very gentle in their handshaking. And he says to me, well, Brent, Yattahe, which is hello, goodbye, greeting. He says Yattahe. He says the Ya in Yattahe is, and he took my palm and he made a swirling like this. He says that Ya is this swirl within your hand, and he says and within your chest, and in each finger you have these energy swirls, and he says that's Ya, and Ya is a universe. So you have a universe within your hand, within each finger you have universe. And when you bring two universes together, you don't want them coming together in a crash, because things are going to get broken and hurt. And he says, but rather they come together gently with respect for one another. And I thought, wow, that is so awesome. That idea compared to, I just love it. I think it's just an awesome way to think about it, because when two people come together, it very much is two universes coming together. And so that's the other part of this symbol. So the symbol represents two hands coming together, and the Ya, the universe of each, and then of course there's an eye that is another symbol here that we put on the flute, representing the eye of Creator, or the eye of our loved ones watching out for us. And that's the symbolism of this particular instrument. So that's gratitude, walking a tightrope. I hope that you enjoy it as much as we do. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to bring you this instrument. You can reach me at 801-822-1415 or brent@woodsounds.com. Hope you have a wonderful day.